And they're like, well, this is the best. I want the lowest interest rate. No, you don't. That's the lowest advertised interest rate, and you're not going to get the home. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that bluntly. When you use a lending institution that doesn't have a good local reputation, you don't get your offer accepted. The best way to do this is to go to someone who's a local mortgage broker like Joshua, who shops on your behalf anyway. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Michael Krasilovsky with Team K Realty, and yes, today we are talking about getting pre-approved for a mortgage. This is an excerpt from a class that I taught with our buyer specialist, Noel Moen, and Joshua Kittle of Cross Country Mortgage. The overall class was called The Sky Isn't Falling and There Is No Bubble, What You Need to Know About Home Buying Today. We're diving in right now, so please keep in mind that this is not a commitment to lend. We're not quoting actual interest rates. We are equal opportunity housing and lending, and this is not to be considered investing, financial, tax, or legal advice. So please do consult those respective experts. So now let's start to transition the conversation into, okay, if you haven't already gotten to that point of the conversation, how do you get pre-approved? Because that sounds like a daunting thing if you've never done it before. And so I feel like this should probably be you, but I'm going to go give you an intro, okay? So what do you need to get pre-approved? You meet with us today, you hear all this information, you're like, okay, I can do this, good. So you've got Joshua Kittle's contact information. What does it look like next? You just need to get your files organized, so to speak, and you can do this. So I've got a distilled list here. He's going to run a credit check on you, so you want to be able to have your credit unfrozen for that. I mean, that's not that hard to do. He's going to look at your debt-to-income ratio, because that's a big part of determining how much you can borrow. Right? That's fair to say probably the most important part?
One of many, actually.
Right.
There's so many. Devil's in the details, and we deal with a lot of details.
A lot of details. All right. So debt-to-income ratio. It's going to look at your taxes. So you're going to want to have tax returns ready to go for a couple of years at least, probably.
Yeah, depending on the program. So the kind of rule we say is kind of two and two. So 2 pay stubs, 2 months bank statements, 2 years tax returns, 2 years W-2s.
And that's the other thing is pay stubs and bank account statements. So a lot of this stuff you've got access to. It might be in a file folder that's, underneath the cat litter box or whatever. If you're using, that's a terrible, whatever. Doesn't everyone have like a big, Sterilite container that's waterproof that holds the file folders in it, and you've got like a plant on top of it in the corner of your living room? Yeah. I do, right? That's where my taxes are. So you got to find this stuff. You get it over to your trusted local advisor on the lending side of things, and then they go figure out, okay, here's what your financial picture looks like. Here's what we can do to improve your financial picture if that's part of the conversation. And here's what we can loan you. So it's not a huge, big, daunting task. Think of this as the checklist. Go find these things and then connect with your mortgage professional.
Now, one thing I'll say, too, about being pre-approved that's important is don't pre-qualify yourself or pre-approve yourself. It's odd. I just heard a stat the other day. 70, I think it was like 73, 72, it's in the 70s, so don't quote me here. But the fact was 70 plus Americans believe it takes more than 5% down to own a home. That's crazy. I've been in the business 19 years and it's never taken more than 5% down to own a home. I think it was over 43% of those actually think it takes at least 20% down to buy a home. Almost half of Americans today still believe it takes 20% down to buy a home, and that's not true. So many people are disqualifying themselves because they think they know enough about it. So it's really important to get pre-approved or pre-qualified. Now, that's another thing I want to show out really quick, because there's a lot of online things that let you get pre-qualified. The problem with pre-qualified is there's no really strength to it. If you don't put your information in right, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so it allows you to do that. So it is important to actually work with a human to go through and look at the details. Devil's in the details. And while there are certain online type lenders that let you basically create your own pre-approval letter, pre-qualification letter, a pre-qual means they haven't verified everything, all right? And people tend to disqualify themselves because they look at the income the wrong way. And income is a really important part there. Lastly, it is possible to actually go through the pre-qualification process with a soft pull. So it's false that, hey, I don't want to get pre-qual now because it's going to hurt my credit. Well, if the lender, not all lenders offer this, but if the lender offers a soft pull, it allows them to at least get a preliminary. They can't pre-approve you until they do a hard pull, but it allows them to actually help you understand where you're at, what you're looking like, if you need help building credit. All this stuff happens during this process, and it's of great value and doesn't cost you anything.
So getting pre-approved for a loan doesn't ruin your credit because you pulled a credit
If you
score.
use a soft pull, it's not going to. If you do a hard pull, it can potentially have a negative impact to your score. But an important thing is once you have a credit report hard pulled by a lender, you have a window with one of the bureaus is 15 days, the other two I think is 40 days, in which you have multiple lenders pull your credit report and it still only counts as one negative hit against you. And if you have less than 3 hard inquiries on your credit report in the last 6 months, it's not going to hurt you anyway. One doesn't hurt you. It's when you start to get more than 3 in 6 months, then it starts to stack up. The reason for this is the credit union company doesn't want to punish you for shopping for a loan. So you just got to know if you're going to do that, you want to get your lenders kind of lined up, do the interview, talk to think, and then have them do it in that window so you don't have to worry about that.
I want to chime in on that too. That's really nice of you to talk about shopping for loans. When I was a first-time home buyer, when my wife and I were getting ready to do this back in 2010, I think is when we got started, we read some book about the home buying process, and it totally said, like, make sure you interview 3 realtors and interview 7 lenders and blah, 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 blah. I would tell you that one of the biggest mistakes that we see our home buyers make is commoditizing the loan. So commoditizing meaning that they think it's all about the rate. And so what ends up happening sometimes, if we don't get to our clients first, is they go on to cheapmortgage.com, which hopefully isn't a real website. I don't want to be slandering something. But they just go to some website like that, and they see an advertisement for free money. And they're like, well, this is the best. I want the lowest interest rate. No, you don't. That's the lowest advertised interest rate, and you're not going to get the home. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that bluntly. When you use a lending institution that doesn't have a good local reputation, you don't get your offer accepted. The best way to do this is to go to someone who's a local mortgage broker like Joshua, who shops on your behalf anyway, right? They're going to make sure that you get a great interest rate, and they're going to then sell that loan to some financial institution afterwards. Any company can be pretty decent at just like cashing a mortgage check. That's not rocket science. But it's a totally different thing to be in business and actually skilled, knowledgeable problem solver who works 24/7 almost, right? To be able to actually deliver on the promises they make and get you that house. It's not just about having a good realtor. You've got to have a great realtor and a great lender, and it all comes down to local reputation. So don't fall into the pitfall of just thinking it's all about who's advertising the lowest interest rate, because that's not what it's all about.
Another thing to add on cheapmortgage.com, I hope it's not a real company.
I know.
But, example, fake company, hopefully. They'll be advertising cheap rates, but another thing that they're probably not advertising is the associated fees along with those rates. That may be quite a bit higher than what Joshua is even offering, and that could be disincentivizing you from actually buying a home. So that's another reason. Also, they may have a bad reputation around here as well. So just think about that as well.
The real estate
Value, not price.
Yeah, exactly. The real estate market is small. And Joshua's way too polite to plug himself. You don't have to use our guide. I mean, that's not how this works. But there's a reason that we refer local experts like Joshua, right? Because there's just a vastly different level of service that you get there as opposed to just using some online company or even just going into a local branch of a financial institution where there just happens to be someone that has a license because they passed a vocab test and they work 9 to 5, and that's that. We all know who's the best at doing their jobs. And that's who we invited to talk with us today. Yeah.
All right, moving on. So now I'm uncomfortable.
I have opinions. We've been doing this a long time. We have opinions for a reason.
Now, hopefully we're going to take a little bit of the wet blanket off, as we'll call it.
All right.
Yep.
I'm a wet blanket.
What's really good about the timing of this market is that we're actually doing a lot more negotiation. Because interest rates are so much higher and there are fewer buyers out there at the moment, we're actually getting to negotiate a lot more because there's only maybe four or five offers if we're in a multiple offer situation.
If we're in a multiple offer situation. Yeah.
We're not having to go as high. We can actually negotiate some repairs, which rewind this time last year, no, I would be saying something completely different to you in order to win the home that you are actually wanting. You're also locking in today's prices, which is very important. While you are locking in the today's prices, if the interest rates drop, awesome, you get to refinance. That's great, you get a lower interest rate, but that price is still locked in. That's fabulous. But what if interest rates continue going up? You'll be glad that you locked in when you had the chance right now. And also, another thing is you lock in that monthly payment. Unlike renting, your landlord will probably raise the rates at some point. If not, just regularly when you re-sign your lease in a year. With owning a home, you actually lock in that price. So as rents go up, your home price is going to be the same. So think about that.
Yeah. And just to really hammer home the ability to negotiate without saying client names or even houses, because it's still under contract right now, there's a deal that Noelle put together for a buyer of ours the other day that had a substantial concession for the buyer on it. And that's the sort of thing that would have been unheard of for quite a long time. And when I say substantial, $25K lower than what the seller wanted, right? I mean, this is a very different feel in the markets than it was years ago. And this home has some challenges with it. It's one of those. That seller's agent is going to do a talk 6 months from now and talk about, oh, there was that one home that went for so much less than I thought it would. But that does happen, and that's part of what we're excited to be able to do for you is negotiate. And that's one of Noelle's main roles on the team.
Yeah, I can throw my own little example in too, because kind of piggyback off the idea of how much money you need for down payment. I got to help my daughter's high school friend purchase her first home, her and her husband. No money. They didn't have money for the earnest money. They got an offer accepted with no earnest money. They decided against my advice to not, and the realtor's advice, not to get a home inspection. He did his own home inspection. Don't advise that. But they didn't have any money. So they used a USDA loan, no money down, got the offer accepted with the seller paying closing costs, and no earnest money down. We closed the loan, no money out of their pocket. They walked into a home. That wouldn't have happened a year ago, because that has all kinds of weakness in that file.
And this kind of stuff probably won't happen next year either.
Yeah, probably won't happen next year.
Yeah.
And once the market returns, why take that risk? The seller, again, not knowing where the bottom was, seller's like, hey, we got somebody, let's at least try it. They did it. So zero money out of pocket. Not even an earnest money deposit. So that's good. So that's my story. So,
All right. Next slide. Yeah.
All right. So this is not a losing situation here. So we like to use the term marry the house, date the rate. Okay. We look here. People think, well, what if rates go down? Maybe I should wait for lower rates. But what if rates go up later? You'd be grateful. So what I'm trying to say here is the rates are what they are, okay? So owning a home, the benefit of owning the home is what you're looking at. And what's your alternatives of buying versus renting anyway? And we're going to actually see a really good comparison that shows you how you don't even have to purchase at or below what you're renting for this to be a good deal. But the idea is if you're trying to, again, time the market with rates and stuff, it's going to be a losing situation. If you buy now, and I think rates go down. We're going to talk about this. I think rates are going down, okay? Definitely, for sure. May 10th, when I'm watching, that's going to start to change the trend. Rates go down. But I wouldn't wait for it. Because one, what if I'm wrong? It's possible. And rates don't go down. Then you've lost this time of owning. If rates go down, what's going to happen? What do you think, after the slides we reviewed, what do you think is going to happen to home values if rates go down?
They're going to go up because we got lots of shadow demand.
They're
All
going
these
to go
buyers
up,
are
right?
going to just flood right into the market.
So you're trying to play this game is I want the lowest price in the home, I want the lowest interest rate. This is going to be a losing battle if you try to get them both. But if I buy now and rates go down, I refinance, but I've locked in today's pricing. If I buy now and rates go up, I'm going to think, oh, thank God I did it now and rates were lower. And I had clients, again, when the market changed that were complaining about a 5% rate. Boy, they're happy with that 5% rate today. When rates hit 8%, they thought they were a genius. But at the moment, they were hating it. They were like, man, rates were just 4 and I bought up 5. I don't know if this was a good idea. But the home value has gone up and rates have gone up. So what I'm just saying here is don't wait. If rates go down, refi. If they don't go down, you're going to be happy because that just means, again, for all the reasons we talked about, home values go up. While it might feel a little bit tight in the payment now, over time, as rents go up and house values go up, it's still cheaper to buy it today than to buy it tomorrow. And we'll see some of these scenarios to make it make more sense for you.
Thanks for checking out this segment from The Sky Isn't Falling and There Is No Bubble. Be sure to stay tuned because next up we are talking about, is housing still affordable? And remember, if you want to work with my team to buy and sell homes in the Corvallis, Oregon area and throughout the Mid-Valley, just give us a call or zip us an email. Our contact information is in the description below and on the underslide. Thanks and bye for now.